Hello, today we shall see the auto leveler. We have already seen how to measure mass irregularities, what are different types, how they are classified, and how they are actually measured by using the spectrogram, how we can analyze them. And today we shall, on that background, we shall see the auto leveler. So let us understand the basic facts on doubling. Doubling cannot correct, or rather it is very difficult for it to correct periodic variations. Also long-term mass variations that are there from shift to shift. If there is some long-term, when I say long-term, now we know the length of it, we have learned it in the earlier lecture. So if there are large length variations around 250 meters and above, then they are variations that are there due to the shift to shift variations that we find, and such variations cannot be again corrected by doubling. They remain unaffected by the passage through raw frame. Doubling can only reduce the CV by the square root of the number of doublings. We have seen this formula earlier. And we shall see that now a table is going to come up in which we will see that after a certain number of doublings, 8 doublings, the CV reduction flattens out, and after that we hardly see any improvement in the CV. So looking at this table, we see over here the influences of doubling on improvement in CV percentage of the output sliver. So we assume that the input sliver has got a CV of 3, and if these are the doublings that we use, using the same sliver, if I use 2 doublings on a particular draw frame, what is the improvement in the CV that I would expect after the process? So I use the formula here, CV percentage input upon root n, that is 3 upon root of 2, and I get the value of 2.12 over here, which is the possible improvement in the CV of the output sliver as against which was 3 during input. So I see a improvement in CV of around 0.88. Similarly, now instead of 2 slivers I feed 4 slivers. And again, using the same formula, I find that the CV has further reduced to 1.5, and we see that between 3 and 1.5 there is a improvement of 0.62. And in the same way we go ahead with 6 doublings, 8 doublings, 10, 12 and 14, and continuously we see that there is some improvement that we see in the output sliver. That means it goes, the CV goes on reducing, but the rate at which it is reducing, it becomes lower and lower, and we see that the improvement just flattens off. After this we see hardly any kind of improvement, like after 8 doublings there's hardly any improvement in the CV of the sliver over the previous doubling that is there. So after 8 there's really no point in increasing the numbering of doublings and expecting to reduce the CV percentage. So we must find some other way to control this. Also there's another table now which I would like to highlight over here. If the input sliver CV instead of 3 it is 5, say, and then we calculate similar values of CV, the possible improvement after doubling, and then we get these figures, and we see that there is a reduction in the previous case, just like the previous case which we saw here, reduction in CV for starting CV of 3. For 5 also we see the same thing, but what happens is if the CV of the input is already high, then the number of doublings or doubling cannot help much in that case, in the reduction. So in both cases we see that beyond 8 doublings, doubling of the sliver at draw frame does not help, and also if the CV of the input sliver itself is high, then again doubling fails to show any great improvement in the output CV or CV of the output sliver. So only an auto leveler, a suitable auto leveler, will be able to correct such variations. So let us see the auto leveler in much detail now. Auto leveler eliminates deviations in mass of particular types and particular lengths, and it is an online monitoring and control device that keeps the sliver weight per unit length variation under control. So now here we see that there are three different types of auto levelers, and they are classified as open loop auto leveler. The open loop auto leveler is effective in the correction of short term variations mainly, and some amount of medium term variations. Then we have a closed loop auto leveler which corrects the medium and long term variations. Then there is a combined loop auto leveler, um, which is a sort of combination of the open and the closed loop. And then this combined loop auto leveler is able to correct short, medium as well as long term variations. For some background on the type of variation or the mass irregularity, you could refer to the lecture number 18 on auto levelers and mass irregularity. So we come to another this thing topic on appropriate process stage for the application of auto leveling. Suppose I want to apply an auto leveler at a stage in the spinning process. So which stage should I actually select? So here we see blue room card, draw frame, speed frame and ring frame as a passages, and considering a production of 500 kgs per hour in blow room, for one head we have calculated and made this table where for one head how many cards would I require to cater to the or consume the production of one blow room line. Similarly, how many draw frames would I require with this kind of a production um, values like 90 kgs per hour production draw frame. How many draw frames would I require to consume 500 kgs per hour? So once I calculate this, we see over here for one blow room head or one blow room line, I require 13 cards, 6 draw frames, 1112 spindles on the speed frame, and this many 1,85,219 spindles on the ring frame. So now looking at these processes, we need to decide where exactly can my auto leveler be installed. So let us start looking at it from ring frame and speed frame upwards. Ring frame and speed frame need a large number of heads. As we can see, speed frame requires 1112 while ring frame requires 1,85,219 spindles for one single head of processing line of blow room. So installing of an auto leveler on these two machines would mean that I would require for each head this many auto levelers to be installed, and it is neither convenient, that is it is not feasible, and neither is it commercially viable. It would cost me a lot, and so commercially again it is not possible. So then we go to the blow room, which is the first stage. Let us see whether I can install an auto leveler at this stage itself, and whether it is really useful to install one over there. So when we look at 1 inch of a lap that is produced by the blow room, that 1 inch of a lap produces an approximate length of 120 yards or so and above, depending on the yarn count that we have chosen. We get 1 inch of blow room lap would give me a yarn length of around 120 yards. So it is not advisable to install an auto leveler in the blow room to even out this very short term variation, um, and it would really not help in correcting it, because it would be required to correct very small lengths of blow room lap to control the variation in yarn lengths to the range of 120 yards and above. So we strike off 3 stages where we can really install auto leveler. So the remaining two processes are card and draw frame, on which we can even consider of installing an auto leveler and trying to correct the periodic variations that we might come across. As we said, card and draw frame are the only two possible locations for an auto leveler. So now let us analyze a little bit of draw frame. So if I were to install the auto leveler on a draw frame, now as we know that as soon as the card sliver uh, comes out, it needs to go through at least two draw frame passages after that before it goes on to the speed frame for most of the processes. So now my question is, where do I apply an auto leveler, whether it should be a breaker draw frame or a finisher draw frame. So one must decide an appropriate stage for auto leveling. So let us see the advantages, disadvantages of having an auto leveler on either of these two machines. So the reasoning for placement of an auto leveler at the finisher draw frame. Why would I um, like to install an auto leveler on a finisher draw frame? The reasons are as under. Auto leveler at the breaker draw frame shall not correct the variation introduced by the finisher draw frame. So since breaker draw frame comes before in the process line, if at all there are certain periodic variations that are introduced by the finisher draw frame which comes later on, the installation of an auto leveler at breaker would not be able to correct the faults that would arise later on finisher draw frame. So it is better to install from this point of view to install an auto leveler on finisher. So also there is one more reason why we choose the finisher over breaker. The finisher draw frame auto leveler shall be less burdened because already most of the mass variations would have been corrected by the breaker draw frame which comes earlier, and also by way of doubling, some irregularities would have been covered up or rather corrected by the breaker draw frame. So by the time it reaches the finisher draw frame, very few, rather relatively few corrections would be required at this stage. So the auto leveler, when it is applied at finisher, would be less burdened. So having decided that we need to install an auto leveler either on card or draw frame, and then having chosen finisher draw frame for the application of an auto leveler, let us go further and see on a finisher draw frame. If I were to apply an auto leveling system, um, the auto leveler, what it does is it measures the volume of the fibers that is passing through the machine or any particular zone, and then if it finds that the material coming out is thick or it is thin, depending on that it will adjust the draft. Suppose for example the measurement finds that a thick sliver is being delivered, so what it goes and does is in the chosen zone, whether the front or back, in the chosen zone, it will, since the sliver delivered is thick, it will try to increase the draft accordingly in that particular zone, so that due to the increase in draft, the thick place is evened out, and the sliver delivered is of normal hank. So this is the main function of the auto leveler, the way it works. So now if I were to decide as to whether my auto leveler should start functioning in the front zone or on the back zone, so again we will have to analyze both these zones and see which one would be better for us. Once decided that the auto leveler shall be installed on finisher, it needs to be discussed as to which zone should I pick. So we look at the front zone. In the front zone, it's actually the main drafting zone, and the draft values are relatively high here as compared to the break draft zone or the back draft zone. And the quality of the sliver that is passing through the front zone, it would be less sensitive to the change in the draft. This topic we have discussed in the drafting force, where if the drafts are high, then the instability or the drafting forces are low, and that's why there are less chances that irregularities are introduced, and therefore we say that the front zone is less sensitive to the change in the draft values, only because the draft is applied here would be too high. Now coming to the back zone, which is actually the break draft zone. We have seen earlier that this zone, having a very little draft, the drafting forces may fall into the stick slip zone, and this when it goes into this zone, it will generate a lot of additional irregularities. Again, the background of this entire lecture has been discussed in under drafting courses. So maybe you can go and refer to that particular lecture. From this reasoning, one can say that the main draft zone is suitable for appropriate action for any kind of corrective action that we may want to take. So now we have decided that we are going to take an action in the say front zone or the main drafting zone. But now there are two roller pairs that are involved. Of course, we are going to take the corrective action by changing the surface speed of the bottom rollers. But in the main draft, there are two rollers which will be involved. That is a front roller, bottom front roller, and a bottom middle roller. Now, again, the question arises: which roller should I choose for changing the speed so that I can adjust the draft? So, having decided the auto leveler, decided that the auto leveler must take corrective action in the main draft zone of the finisher draw frame. Now we need to decide whether the front roller speed is to be adjusted or the middle roller speed is to be adjusted. So now we see over here that if the draft is adjusted by change in the front roller RPM, it affects the delivery speed, and in turn it will affect the production levels, because we know that the production is calculated by the surface speed of the output roller. So if I were to change the front roller RPM to adjust the drafts for auto leveling, then automatically the production levels would keep on changing with every correction. And this would also lead to further disturbances during coiling. So it would be more advisable and sensible to correct or adjust the middle roller speed to adjust the drafts. And it also becomes easier to control the middle roller speed because it is much lower than that of the front roller. And it is to the extent of it is lesser than the front roller to the extent of maybe even 5 to 6 times, depending on the draft value that we would apply in the main drafting zone. So it is obvious that there should be a proportionate or a simultaneous change in the back roller speed. So if we have decided that we are going to change the middle roller speed to change the draft in the main drafting zone, then we since the middle roller speed change would affect the draft in the back zone of the drafting system, so we must see to it and see to it that the back zone draft are remains unchanged, because the back zone draft is nothing but the brake draft, and we cannot afford to keep on changing the brake draft every time any kind of corrective action is taken by changing the middle roller speed. So simultaneously, as soon as there is a change in the middle roller speed for changing the draft, it is obvious that we must take care that simultaneously the back roller speed as well as the scanning roller and along with that the creel guide roller, all these roller speeds before middle roller are accordingly or proportionately changed. This is done to avoid breaking of the sliver by changing any kind of tension drafts which we might disturb in the creel, or the brake draft also should not be disturbed whenever we take any kind of corrective action by changing the middle roller speed. So now we come to the the three different types of auto levelers that we have just mentioned. So here is a diagram, line diagram, which explains how this open loop auto leveler works. So if this is the drafting system, or rather it's called the process, and we can see that the measurement or the sensing unit would be before the process. Whatever measurement is done over here, it will sense and it will decide whether it is a thick or a thin place, and the amount of variation is given away or far further passed on to the control unit, which has already got a reference signal that we might have already fed, which is the average value of the um, or the count of the hank that we need at the delivery end. So what it will do is it will check whether the uh, entering the feed material that is entering the process is thick or thin, and depending on that it will try to first compare it with the reference signal or the already fed signal that we have given, and if it finds that it deviates from our requirement, then it will pass on a signal to the process, and in the process, that is a drafting system. Of course, now we have decided it's the main drafting system, and we are going to adjust the speed of the middle ruler to control the draft. So and a command is given to change the middle ruler speed depending on whether we sense a thick or a thin place coming into the process. So as soon as the material comes at this stage, at the regulating point, it will be corrected and the material is delivered. So this is a sort of open loop auto leveler. So the total volume of all slivers is measured at the feed compared with the reference signal, which is the mean output of the required sliver, output hank of the required sliver. And after comparing, the adjustment is done in the main drafting zone with an appropriate time delay. Now, why this time delay is required? Because measurement has happened here, and by the time the material comes to the process, there is some time that has gone by, and therefore we need to give some kind of delay for that faulty material to actually reach the front drafting zone, and once it reaches, it is corrected. The required change is stored in the storage device till the time that the material actually reaches the regulating point. So it is diagrammatically shown over here how this open loop works. This is the front zone of any of a draw frame, and the measurement has taken place before this middle ruler, and this arrow shows the corrective action that is taken, the ruler at which the corrective action is taken. Its sort of map is given here, and middle ruler the corrective action is taken. This is the fiber flow which is shown, and measurement is happening before the middle ruler. Measurement always takes place on the material prior to the point where the corrective action is applied. The control unit accordingly increases, leaves unaltered, or decreases the draft of the process, giving the required output hank. Magnitude and direction of change in draft is determined by the magnitude and direction of change in the hank indicated by the measuring unit. So whatever the measuring unit, the magnitude and the direction, whether it is should be increased or decreased, whatever the measurement unit senses and feeds its data to the control unit, accordingly draft changes will happen in the front zone. So what are the advantages of an open loop auto leveler? Very precise leveling of even very short lengths can be done by using an open loop auto leveler. Open loop control can compensate short and medium term variations, but there is no self monitoring. So when I say there is no self monitoring, what I mean is the measurement has happened, the correction has happened after the measurement is done, but after the correction is made, whatever delivery material has come out, again there is no kind of control over it. Nobody is checking that again to see whether whatever action you have taken is wrong or right. So there is no self monitoring over here. Once the correction is done, it's over. The material gets delivered into the can. Due to the lower speeds at the feed area, the sensors in an open loop auto leveler, the sensors would be in the feed area. So the speeds at the feed being relatively lower, it can measure large weights of sliver, and therefore there is a more precise measurement in case of an open loop auto leveler. Open loop auto levelers are normally found on draw frames. Also, the piecing faults arising at the comber can only be partly corrected. Again, there is no claim that it can fully be corrected. Partly it is corrected by the open loop auto leveler, but the same thing cannot be achieved by the closed loop auto leveler, which we shall see shortly. So now we come to the closed loop auto leveler. Now here we observe the first major change here, that the process is before the measuring unit. So after the whatever output is delivered by the process, the measurement unit comes in place, or rather it will measure the thickness of the output sliver rather than the input, as in the earlier case. It will measure it and it will send the signal to the regulator unit, which already has got a reference signal just like before, fed already into it. It will compare the two signals and take appropriate action in the process which is behind the measuring unit. So, and this is a continuous process. As you can see, it's a loop. Process, whatever it delivers, it is measured, it is compared, process is adjusted accordingly, the draft is adjusted, and again the material whatever is delivered, again the measurement unit will measure it, and this happens continuously in the form of a loop. So in a closed loop system, the evenness of the delivered sliver is measured, and therefore the adjusting point is located before the measuring point. So the regulating point that is in the process is before the measuring unit, unlike in the open loop system. So again the diagram explains better. Again the corrective action is taken in the on the middle roller only of the front drafting zone. But as you can see in the earlier case, the measurement was happening at the feed, in the feed area. Now the measurement is happening in the delivery region, and corrective action is taken after measuring the delivered material. Measurement is done in this case at a very high speed. In the earlier case, it was happening at the feed, which was at a very low speed. Now, in contrast, in case of an closed loop, it is exactly opposite. It is happening at a very high speed, and it is also happening on a very small mass of fibers as compared to the earlier system. And this leads to a very high demands on the sensing and the signaling process. So the sensing and the signaling process is very critical here, because it will have to measure the variations at a very high speed, and also the variations has to be measured on a relatively very low mass of fibers which are coming out. So the control unit compares the measurement signal with the reference signal, which is mean output Hank, that is required, which we have already fed, which we would have already fed into the system. If the direction of the arrows are followed from any point, like as we just saw earlier, from any point other than the delivery, once it's delivered, it's out. But any point you begin, it leads to a never-ending circuit of loop linking the process and the control unit together. Therefore, the name here, closed loop control system. So now let us see if we were to compare advantages and the limitations of a closed loop system over the open loop. So this is the closed loop control system. Again, the picture is pasted here, and this is the open loop. So we can see here again that the process, the measurement, and all are going in the loop. But if we were to start from measurement any over here, the arrows are not pointing in the same direction. They are going in opposite direction at these places. So therefore, this is known as a closed loop system. So in a closed loop system, measurement takes place on the material after the point where the corrective action is applied. The corrective action is applied to the middle rulers. The control unit therefore checks the results of its own action, and this is an advantage of the closed loop system. As we said earlier, that in the closed loop system there is a continuous process of checking, regulating the process, then again rechecking the actions, the effect of its action, then again regulating, and so on. This happens continuously. Whereas in the open loop system, once the measurement is done, the process has made a change, then there is no measurement again to check whether whatever the action the process has taken in the right direction or not. So this becomes one huge advantage in case of a closed loop system over the open loop system. Now another point that we should note in case of a closed loop system is that as long as the incoming sliver is of same nature as the one that is sensed, it is able to correct them. That means it is we are assuming that the measurement is happening on the same kind of material which is continuously coming for a long duration of time through the process. So because after measurement there would be some time delay before the process is able to correct it. So we are assuming that whatever next the material is coming after the sensed material has been or has already gone out of the system, we are assuming that the next material that is coming in would be of the similar nature, and assuming that we are going to take a corrective action. So it is so as we can see that it is suitable for controlling long-term irregularity, because if it is say long term of say 250 meters of length of say faulty material is coming in through the process, then barring a few inches or centimeters that would have passed in the beginning for measurement, after that all the remaining length of fault that is coming in through the process would get corrected by this closed loop system. But now, on the other hand, imagine that a short-term irregularity has come in and it is passing through this closed loop system, and it is measured. And after measuring, by the time it starts, it gives the command to the regulator unit, and the draft change takes place. It is possible that the regularity being a short-term one, there is no more irregularity that needs to be corrected, and whatever measurement was done on the fault has already gone through the system. And so this kind of a closed loop system would be useless in case of a short-term irregularity which would pass through it. So therefore, short-term irregularity would have already passed the sensing point into delivery can by the time the correction is initiated. So if you recollect the earlier slide where we saw the three types of auto levelers: open, closed, and combined. In below that we said that under open loop it corrects only short term. It is very effective in controlling short term variations, and only to a certain extent some medium term variations, whereas the closed loop is very effective in controlling or correcting the medium and the long term variations. So the reason is now quite obvious when we have studied both the systems in detail. So now we come to another concept which is called as hunting, which we see normally in a closed loop system. The deviation is registered by the sensor at the output, and it is corrected by the leveling system at the feed. That means feed means the front zone. Then the corrected material is again checked, as we said in the closed loop, it keeps on checking. So it will again check, the sensor will check it at the output. If the material has been overcorrected by the leveling system, which does happen many a times, that means, for example, the deviation is on the thicker side. After it passes through the auto leveler and the system completely, it would have we might find that the system has overcorrected this thick place, and because of the overcorrection, that thick place has become now a thin place because of too much of draft that is applied, and that means overcorrection has happened, and what we get is a thin place. And now this thin place is again come for sensing to the measurement unit after the process, and again by sensing it finds that it's a thin place, so the draft is reduced, and it is reduced to such an extent that is again overcorrected, and you tend to get a thick place, and this keeps on happening cyclically till it reaches the mean value. So the corrected material is again checked by the sensor at the output. If the material has been overcorrected by the leveling system, then the sensor again gives the deviation, but in the reverse direction, which will again be overcorrected. So this will continue until the mean value is reached. So this concept is called as hunting. Hunting is defined as the undesired phenomenon of overcorrecting the deviation repeatedly unless the mean value is reached. So now we come to the last type of auto leveler, that is a combined loop auto leveler. In this case, we can see that there are measurements taking place at two places, both at feed as well as the delivery. The correction takes place again only on the middle roller of the main drafting zone. So It is a combination of open loop and closed loop to correct short-term irregularities with a quick response, which is a feature of an open loop system, and it combines with the long-term stability of a closed loop auto leveler. So both the plus points are combined together to give us the combined loop auto leveler. Additionally, the open loop system has a limitation that it is not able to detect a slow shift over a period of time. There's a slow shift in the mean value itself of the sliver count, which is a drawback of the open loop system, and this is a limitation. And this limitation is covered up or corrected by using a combined loop, where you have a closed loop system also to keep a good check on the irregularity. So several manufacturers had therefore equipped their raw frames earlier with both system and combination, and the compensation that was found to be around plus minus 25% correction could be done. So now we come to once we have understood all the types of auto levelers, let us see what are the desirable features of a good auto leveler. One thing is it should have a long-term stability. That is, the average value of the sliver count should not vary over a period of time, which, as we've seen, is a drawback in the case of an open loop system. So desirable property is that it should have a long-term stability. Then it should also be reliable in terms of performance. It should correct the irregularities that it is meant to correct. The settings that are there, it should be reproducible, and there should be a wide control over a range of variations, and it becomes important in case of a shoot feed system cards, where the variation ranges from plus to minus 25% can be expected. And this kind of variation for correction means that the auto leveler should also have a wide control over a range of variations that it may be fed with. So with this, we come to the end of the lecture today. Thank you.